Recording. Roll call for Edwin Neal.
Dave Mansfield.
Bill Clemens.
Ronald Wood.
Frank Skellinger.
We have 3 commissioners present out of the 5 seated, so that is a quorum. We will proceed with the meeting. All staff is here. Thank you in advance for your future labors as well as your past. We have scheduled a 7 p.m. after the fact request for determination, and there's been a notice that we will read, legal notice of that hearing.
The Hanson Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022, at 7 p.m. at the Hanson Town Hall, Selectmen's Meeting Room, 542 Liberty Street, Hanson, Mass. Pursuant to an after-the-fact request for determination of applicability for Franklin Centillo, represented by Ambassador Pool Distributors Incorporated, 1020 Turnpike Street, number 11, Canton, Mass. 02021. Parcel and project, installation of an above-ground pool located within 100 feet of bordering vegetated wetlands at 510 Washington Street, map 84-015-3. The applicant is filing under Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Town of Hanson Wetland Protection Bylaw, 313, Section 5, and Rules and Regulations. Hanson Conservation Commission, Philip Clemens, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The hearing is now open, and I can invite you, the applicant or our agent, to summarize the situation. I'm not sure if there's a preference on anyone's part. Sir, if you would like to describe your request and the details surrounding that, the floor is yours.
Right. Thank you. Apologize for any inconvenience or after the fact. My 2 young, we just recently purchased a home at the end of December, coming from the city of Boston. 2 boys wanted a pool. I submitted Ambassador Pool to give me a quote. Gave me a quote. I went with the quote. Paid additional fees for them to pull out permits to get everything done correctly. It was brought to my attention after the installation that they were still going through the permit process, and that's probably why we are here now.
Okay.
So,
Dr.
to
Selinger.
summarize, the building inspector brought to my attention the fact that there was a pool down behind the house. So I went down to take a look, and I spoke to Franklin about it. And since there's a wetland behind the house bordering Brett's Brook, I told him that he needed to come before the commission for a permit, and since it was after the fact, it would have to be identified that way, and so forth. When I observed the site, I observed that the pool is within the 50-foot buffer to the wetland. I also observed that the backyard is clear and not well vegetated at this point. Bare ground. It didn't occur to me at the time that it had been cleared for the pool, but subsequently I've been in contact with a neighbor who said that there were many trees back there that were cut down, taken out. I gave Phil aerials of what the site looked like before the pool was put in there, and it's clear that if you look at the house from the front, that there were a bunch of pine trees to the right rear side where the pool is that were taken down. So I leave it up to you what you want to do.
Well, we certainly don't advocate whether it's accidental or sometimes parties that who have different ways of doing things might be a little less accidental, do things like this. I would suggest as just an opening for a commission to discuss that if there were no mitigation or anything recommended, it would suggest to future potential project sponsors that it didn't matter whether they applied or not, or whether their contractors became well-informed and got all permits ahead of time or not. I'm thinking that might not be a good way to meet our responsibilities. We're hearing that there was, and if you have any comments on vegetation that was there before, we'd be happy to hear it, but it seems like there was more vegetation before than there is now. And we are in the business by law. We just want to uphold the law that says we protect buffer zones as well as the wetlands themselves. Thoughts, comments?
What would you be saying if this was what we had today and he was requesting to put this in? Would we?
Well,
We would maybe suggest that he move it closer to the house,
And not cut the
and,
vegetation?
and if he felt the need to remove trees, we would probably tell him to plant trees to replace.
that comes under the heading of what we would call, when we talk about it in advance, of mitigation, a way to sort of balance the environmental books. If you need to harm a little bit of vegetation, you could replace it with a little or a little bit plus in some other manner. Myself personally, and this, I'm not going to say this directs our discussion, if it were a different type of project, not a pool, there actually is precedent for us, for a commission, our commission or other commissions, saying to move the item, whatever it is, so that it is not infringing on the buffer zone. I'm inclined to not suggest that here, but I'm inclined to want to look for some mitigation. It looks like there is, in the photo here, there was a certain amount of lawn to the front of the house and towards the left side of the house as you look at it from the street. That's obviously just plain lawn. Is there a slope down? Is there a...
It grades down toward the back, yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember how that section of West Washington Street goes, and when that neighborhood came in for subdivision and so on, we anticipated that people would want to do things in their backyards, but the backyards would be limited in size by the nearness of the wetlands, and this appears to be somewhat a case of that. To frame the discussion a little further, I think that there's certainly always a desire to mitigate with vegetation on the location. There is also precedent, and sometimes within this commission right here, of having mitigation take place elsewhere in the same watershed, maybe not miles away, but have environmental improvements made through plantings or something like that in other areas, if to a reasonable degree or extent.
This is above ground pool, right?
Yes.
Okay.
If I could just add about the pool that after the fact.
Sure.
So the reason why some of the trees were taken down was over the winter time, there was some a dead tree. There was another tree that was kind of leaning. There was an additional tree that had like a giant hole. It was very hollow in the middle. So I paid a company to come and remove those. I pleaded a little bit of ignorance when I bought the property. What the real estate agents told me, they put like a caution tape around some trees that held my property line. So after Mr. Schoenberg showed me the maps about the wetlands, I had no idea what interpretation of those were. But I was taking some of those trees down that were dead to the best of my ability. I do have a few other trees that did uproot right next to it, but it's kind of out of sight, so I didn't remove those. When the tree company came, they suggested that those pine trees were a major threat to the home. And since I do have permits, do have solar installed, so I thought that was a threat to the solar should that pine tree that was very top heavy, very light on the bottom, topple over, that it would catastrophically destroy the home.
Right.
So that was my interpretation for the trees, but that wasn't originally for the pool itself.
Well, cutting the trees in the wetlands would require you to come to us also.
or the buffer zone.
For the buffer.
Yeah, and so, whether it's your property or a neighbor's property, anyone's property, anywhere, tree cutting projects, unless they're clearly, long distance from anything wet or whatever, we always encourage people to call the office. And we've made many visits to locations, where the insurance company or a homeowner themselves or others say, there's a danger here, and sometimes we absolutely agree. But maybe we can just kind of move towards the mitigation thing here. I know from the plot plan here, there is it's a 2.29 acre plus or minus property, and it looks like something or half of it, maybe even a tad more, is wet down back. You probably don't go there a lot because it's probably moist and not nice to walk in or stuff like that.
Right.
But another way to look at that, there are at least 8 interests under state law of the Wetland Protection Act. One is wildlife habitat, and wildlife loves hollow trees. It is a standard in forestry practice to try to have in every acre, if you can, at least 5 trees with holes in them. Now, we don't want them right over our house or our pools or our cars or our kids' bus stop, but besides some vegetation, I think it might be an idea if, in this case, we recommended some sort of a birdhouse or nest box to be installed well back in the wetlands. Then, who knows what might have been enjoying from time to time that tree that had to be taken down for habitat. But people do this sometimes just for recreation, so they can watch owls or bluebirds or anything else enjoy a little habitat enhancement, an artificial hole in a tree. We call it a birdhouse. So that's one thought I have. I'm also thinking it may be that along the edge of the wetlands, not intruding into the yard a lot, but near the edge, some native shrubs along the lines of blueberries, or there's a few others that would be candidates to sort of reclaim some of the vegetation without causing any risk or hazard to people on the property or in the yard. But I'm also thinking we may have, conservation may have other properties in more or less that part of town where a few trees or shrubs could be installed, or some management like that could happen. I know that down where Poor Meadow Brook goes under West Washington Street, we have a parking area, and there's actually quite a few trees and things there, but it might be a place where we could do a little bit more and finish that area off a little bit better, say right along the street where some of the vegetation is not that great.
I agree with all those ideas. I'm wondering how much the volume we want for like how many
Right.
trees were taken down and.
Well, we seek to be reasonable people. We're not talking enormous amounts of funding here. Before we move to that, I'll ask our agent if he has any thoughts about it, about the principle we're talking about here. We've talked about a couple of ideas. But
Well, I agree. I agree that the site itself should be revegetated.
the bare areas.
Yes, and not just with grass, but with some form of tree growth.
Some woody.
Yeah. As far as your suggestion of having the applicant provide trees somewhere else, I think it's a good idea, but I think it would be worthwhile to make it optional rather than mandatory. I don't want to impose a requirement that perhaps is not, I don't know what the right word is, I don't want to extort a tree out of someone.
Yeah.
If there's a voluntary agreement to do so, that would be fine.
Well,
How much square footage are we talking about revegetating that property?
Well,
we look at, for example, this.
it's really hard to judge how much you want to impose, because the entire backyard is within the 50-foot buffer, and the entire backyard was cleared. So whether you want to impose revegetating to that extent is really up to you, or whether you want to revegetate the edge of the wetland and perhaps down along the left side where the pool is not. You can see where the pool is from the map, in relation to the house, and you can see where the wetland line is if you revegetated along the back line and some to the left.
So,
that might be an option that you consider.
yeah. Well, this is an open public hearing, and there may be neighbors in the area who would have comments too. So before we go too much further, I'll ask if there are any comments or questions from anyone else in the room. I see a hand. Mr. Ferguson, I believe.
Yes, Art Ferguson, I live at 452, I'm his neighbor,
Okay.
next door. And I was the one who developed all the lots down there, on the property.
Mhm.
That area is so dense, the wetland area, you almost can't walk through it, there's a lot, it's very, very wet. There's all kinds of wildlife, I have fisher cats down there, deer, I got deer all over the place. And I have hunters who come in and ask to go down and go hunting. I don't know whether that's a factor or not, but all I know is I'm always fighting vegetation around my house because I get maple trees growing on my deck and plants. There seems to be seedlings everywhere. If you just leave it alone, it just grows in.
Mhm.
It just grows in like crazy.
Mhm.
Whether that's a factor or not, I don't know. I just wanted to put that.
Well, it's always good to hear from people who are familiar with the environment. I know from this other plot here, it shows an existing house, and that may be your house at 452.
Yes, that's it.
In terms of convenience, it seems the wetlands line is quite a ways further back from your house than from the other property. But it sounds like an area where vegetation likes to grow, and that could make it easy. Is it your intention to, let's say, go back a little bit in time, was your intention to have a nice lawn around the pool area? Do you know if the property is dry enough that would support a lawn? Is that what you are thinking?
Yes, when they built the house, to the best of my knowledge, they didn't really kind of clear it, so it's kind of like rocky a little bit and so, but it is growing grass, and I don't know the proper terms, but yeah, my neighbor said there's a lot of vegetation, a lot of tree brushes, and a lot of stuff just growing constantly.
Areas of, let's just call it lawn, come in all varieties. There are people who want a perfect lawn, looks like a putting green at Pebble Beach, and there are other people who are willing to accept lots of other green things as long as they mow and the greens are blended with the grass, but they're more diverse, shall we say. It could be white clover, there could be violets, there could be other things that pollinators and other things like. What if we suggested that this gentleman, in the interest of having some green lawn there, seed the area that's bare, or at least supplement what's growing there already with something in addition to just plain grass seed, at least some white clover mixed in to make it a more diverse grassy area. And what if we suggested, and you can get that seed, white clover seed is easy to find. And what if we suggested a modest number, let's say 8 or 10 high bush blueberry bushes along the back edge of the lawn, the disturbed area that's furthest away from the street, just to sort of reestablish that there should be vegetation there. And what if we also suggested at least one birdhouse, which could be many different types. There's so many out there, I'm not going to dictate what it be. Somewhere a short distance into the wetland area, so as to bring back a little more of the habitat that was removed when the tree removal happened. Those are some thoughts. A short list, I hope.
I definitely like all that. I think we should, I'm not sure how you feel about native part of it. Anything that they grow, I don't know, I know that.
Oh,
we
native
prefer
is our
native
middle name here. We, yeah. When one is planting, whether it's seeds for a grassy area or a meadow or a shrub or a tree, there's a long list, at least 100 species. It's not even legal to buy in Massachusetts anymore. Even though lots of people have them, you can't buy them legally in the nursery. We are not for non-native illegal things. We're for native plants. And as Mr. Borgeson attests, there's lots of native plants thriving in the area. One advantage of using native things is they will live and they will thrive. They'll survive.
Well, one thing when he was mentioning maple trees everywhere, and the ones that I know that are the most prolific or whatever are the Japanese maple, which are not native. They're not illegal, but they're not native.
They're prolific in the sense they're popular with landscapers, and with realists.
They're invasive too, right?
Oh, well, I don't know how invasive they are, but we do not recommend them because they're not native. High-bush blueberries are native. When you're going to say maple, the most common maple out here is the red maple. But those are so not rare. I wouldn't know about specifying any of those being added. Does the commission feel it would be enough to have a row of a native shrub such as high-bush blueberry, let's say 8 or 10 spaced out a few feet apart, and maybe our agent can weigh in on how much distance they would recommend on that. They're attractive in and of themselves, and birds like them, and they have red foliage in the fall. It's a lot like the burning bush, which we do not recommend you plant. Those are illegal. And as far as the open area that's been created, the biodiversity and the functionality of that would be better if it wasn't just plain grass, if it was enhanced with white clover.
I agree. And you're saying, so grass with something mixed in with it, native grass, local grass.
Right, you can go so far as to go out and buy conservation mixtures.
Yeah.
I don't know that we have dictated that around anyone's pool area. If you mow white clover, you don't kill it. It stays there, and it will be a few weeks later. You have to tell you mowed it.
Yeah.
But it never grows high in an annoying manner.
Do you want to say white clover or a conservation mix, or like give the option?
Sure, I think that would be acceptable to this person. I don't know what Mr. Mansfield thinks or what our agent would suggest. We want to give you a lot of flexibility, but we also want there to be a result that is sort of good for the neighborhood.
Appreciate it. Just got me, you're saying white clover?
Yes,
Like
white
bush
clover.
or tree?
Well, what we're talking lawn area. The word tree is associated with white clover. It's just we would like.
Grows about that high.
Yeah, it's maybe ankle height.
So sorry, I don't know what that is. Is it a tree or is that a...
Right, white clover is a green, low-growing, think clover. It's like think of a shamrock, a Lucky Charm, whatever. Doesn't grow very high. Very common around here. Farmers like it because if it's in your pasture, it's very good for your grazing animals. It's very high in nitrogen, and it's good for the soil. It puts nitrogen back in the soil.
So it helps keep your grass green at the same time. The
Yeah.
grass is mixed in with it.
It actually does very well during drought periods too. I mean, it's less sensitive to drought than, say, fancy lawn grass. And last but not least, if you have any neighbors who have honeybees, or if you don't have neighbors with honeybees live in lots of places, they benefit from, they will pollinate that very nicely and be grateful for the opportunity.
Well, we haven't decided how many high bush blueberries we want in there.
I'm sort of fishing, and Frank, I don't know if you've seen a physical distance. I know the property is, but it's about 120 plus 65. It's probably about a 200-foot long line of the wetland, but I don't think we need to do all that.
Dozen would do.
A dozen would do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a dozen high bush blueberries, white clover, clear.
White clover or conservation mix to reestablish the grassy area, and at least one.
White clover is good to walk on too. I mean,
Yes,
it's not-
oh, yeah.
You're gonna be able to, it's a lawn.
It's very comfortable underfoot. It doesn't have any thorns or anything on it. It's how do you say? It's popular for good reason. It also will put nitrogen in the soil that would help the grass next to it. So you may have to use less fertilizer if you have to do that.
And secondary, just a pronunciation, some high brush blueberry,
High bush.
high bush.
There are two species of native blueberries around here. One, it grows quite tall, and it's the type that you find around the corner from you at the blueberry farm. There's more than one variety of them. Those are high bush blueberries, and you can have your own high bush blueberry farm and not have to pay money for those things. But you also would be competing with the birds for them, because it's very good wildlife food too. But it's native, and as Mr. Borgeson can attest, you probably wouldn't have to go too far out into that wet area before you'd find other high bush blueberries.
I got it in my,
You've probably got them volunteering down back. So I'm suggesting that be our list of recommendations to mitigate for the environmental impact.
So the lawn, the blueberry bushes, and a birdhouse?
Yeah, that's my thought.
I like that.
It wouldn't interfere with the enjoyment of a pool, but it would restore some functions that went away in that exact spot when the trees were cleared and stuff. And I think personally that it would make the backyard not less pleasant but more pleasant than it would be just if we didn't do anything. Comments from our staff?
Oh, good.
Well,
Move it.
I would entertain a motion to retroactively approve this project, provided that the damage be mitigated with the steps we just described. The impact be mitigated with what we just described.
Before you do that, would you move to allow work within the 50-foot buffer?
Separately, and previous to that, the chair would entertain a motion to allow this work to occur within 50-foot buffer.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. 3-0-0. That's approved. We actually try to not have any kind of work take place in the 50-foot buffer zone. One nickname for it is the no-touch zone, but since it's been thoroughly touched, we'll have to touch it again to do this work. So, moving back to the original thought, the chair would entertain a motion to retroactively approve
-3.
to issue a -3 determination regarding this work, and have special conditions of installing that the blueberry bushes, the birdhouse, and the white clover or conservation program. So, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And motion to close the hearing.
So we'll,
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Aye. The paperwork will follow. It will make more clear than just a verbal discussion here of what's needed. And we appreciate you coming in and cooperating. It was, unless people would prefer not to, but we do thank you for coming in, and, we think that with a little bit of, paperwork starting with what we're signing right now, you'll be on your way.
All right, well, thanks for your attention.
Thank you.
Related, but we don't have anything to, like, for people that just want to do what's good for the environment, and so, you know, like just saying, hey, we'd like you to plant native high bush blueberry and clover and the bird houses and that type of stuff. Granted, they couldn't do any of that within the 50-foot buffer zone without coming there anyway, but just in general, to be good for the environment.
There are a number of ways to do that, and we've been so busy with big projects and with special applications, things like that, we probably haven't done enough of it, but there are backyard habitat programs that are very well, very popular in a lot of parts of the country, and people can do that.
Yep.
And if they want to talk to us, that's great. I think that would be a good thing to look into, and there probably are websites or handouts that could be created or just made available, so people would do that. Another thing, though, and this speaks to a little bit of what we have here, a professional engineer who did a lot of good work around here for years and he retired, John Mullane, suggested what's going on in many places is a town may have what they call special environmental projects. Let's say you have an area that belongs to the Conservation Commission, but it needs to be enhanced. Like you need to clear out some invasive vegetation, put in some new vegetation, whatever. A contribution towards that special environmental project could be mitigation for something else that's happening nearby. So what we're trying to do is sort of create a little bit of that thinking on short notice here.
I like that.
And
one thing,
even though the hearing's closed, I will recognize a hand that was just waved.
Yeah,
Unless
I
you
have an idea. So, if you look on this plot plan, and it's not relative to, well, it's a little relative to.
We'll allow a diversion because it may be related to this or a similar project.
Yeah. So you've got three pieces, including myself, you've got wetlands behind the house, wetlands delineation.
Mhm.
What if we had an article like in the Hanson Express or whatever that said, you know, if you've got wetlands, you're just kind of highlighting, like what a 50-foot buffer is, a 100-foot buffer.
Educational.
Yeah, just kind of, and even somebody like land planning goes, okay, now you just made 3 lots and they got wetlands. These people, you know, it wouldn't hurt, just so you know.
That might be an idea for one of our articles.
We have a pre-existing plan to launch a series of articles, call it a column in the Hanson Express, on anything to do with where our interests are or our responsibility. That could be one of them. It could be several of them. I would say that a very narrow view of it would be to say it's the job of applicants and their professional associates, engineers, realtors, architects, etc., to be aware, because these laws are like 50 years old plus. It's not new. And a professional who is in the business of disturbing the surface of the earth in Massachusetts has no excuse for not knowing, and they're remiss in their duties if they don't tell their clients about it. But we know sometimes that's a rocky road, and more education is good.
No, that's a good point, I realize.
Yeah.
That's true, if I'm gonna come and start taking down trees,
yeah, that's
I
a
should
good
really
one.
know, yeah.
Yeah, it's every tree company, every builder, and I think every realtor, I say that with an underline, ought to be aware of and discuss these things with every client. Either reassure them that they're going to be fine because maybe they are, or say, we all got to go check, or I'll check for you as part of my services to you. And then their phone rings and we start that. So, but good point, education is good. And it can be done in a way that's not like, here's your bad tasting medicine.
Right.
It's interesting.
Right.
And it's actually, we all ought to be grateful we live on a wet planet. Just sometimes the moisture is closer than is a little convenient. But we think of the Wetlands Protection Act as not only protecting the wetlands, but preventing failed septic systems and preventing wet cellars and those kinds of things. But our hearing is closed. We've made some, I think, hopefully some helpful to all parties, suggestions, and, there will be some paperwork that will be issued. I'm looking for nods, yes. And that will guide our, Mr. Centeo, help me with the pronunciation again? Centeo. By the way, welcome to Hanson. You haven't lived here very long, I guess, right?
No, but I've heard a lot of great things, and a lot of people who wish to move here, so.
You've chosen a street that I always thought was one of the nicest streets in town, because it has a mixture of old and new, and still has a little bit of the New England landscape in it. So we hope this helps with your part of that landscape.
No, it's definitely a peaceful environment, and that's what it's anything.
Yeah. Well, we wish you well in completing this, and I think our agent will help, and I'm going to assume there will be follow-up to the site as work goes on, whatever schedule that turns out to be on. We know it's getting late in the year. It's actually not too late to put blueberry bushes in the ground, and it's never the wrong season to put up a birdhouse. In fact, you want to do it before spring, because you want to have it ready when they show up. And we notice we have not specified the species. There can be informal discussion. There's so many different ways to do it. Maybe you want to Google it and say backyard birdhouse and get some ideas. Not sure how much. Yeah, yeah. Well, start with Audubon.
Audubon?
Mass Audubon. They are the bird experts, and they, I think, are a rich resource for suggestions for homeowners like yourself, what you can put up a little ways into the woods. Audubon is spelled A-U-D-O-B-O-N, or A-U-D-U.
I think it's you. I think
D-U. It's Mass Audubon. It's a French name.
A-U-D-U-B-O-N.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I would urge there to be communication between yourself and the office going forward so that we can be sure you've got a good plan and wish you well.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on. There may be another piece of business relating to land in more or less that part of town that perhaps our agenda is always has a section on it for open space management. Perhaps I'm mistaken in what you were saying earlier.
I think it's either going to discuss it or he'll talk to you in private.
Okay.
So there's the option.
Just stay tuned.
Yeah.
There may be other things that are not actually on our agenda tonight that will come up between now and the next meeting, and we'll put them on a future agenda. So, let's move on. Buried my agenda, here it is. Let's look at the minutes from our last meeting, October 19th. Thank you, staff, for putting them together, all 3 pages.
There's a minor typo on page 3, on the blocky run. Door frame needs to be stamped in the middle. And I'd like to have the reason.
So it should read how, right now it says door frame pulled from river, weeds to be removed.
Oh.
Would the W be an N?
Yeah.
Needs to be removed.
The weeds need to be removed too, but that might be a bigger project than...
Okay.
Needs to be removed.
That note is
Okay.
made. I skimmed it earlier, so I'm pretty comfortable. I did wonder about that line. You've explained it very appropriately. Quite a few property management details there. I know they're being scrutinized, so thank you for that. Chair is ready to entertain any motion about these minutes.
I move that we vote to approve the meeting minutes from the October 19th, 2022 meeting.
As
As
slightly corrected.
Second it?
Here, motion and second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, 300, approved. So right down the list, the guide to locating a business in Hanson. I believe we have that in our packet here. Is there a reason I have two, a thick one and a thin one?
Yeah, that's the original, and then these are just the comments.
Oh, okay. So the comments are contained here.
Yep.
Yeah. Our agent has quite capably gone through and made a healthy handful of notes for improving this, and I know there's been informal discussion between him and the town planner. This product from a consultant. I agree that this plan needed improvement, and Frank has made suggestions along those lines. I'll say for the record, I still am kind of stunned that even with the help of the consultant, our town planner and whoever was on the team failed to list on the contents Conservation Commission. I mean, every other board is there. The fire department, building, town clerk, selectmen, health. I'll be unstunned by having conservation added in there. And I also was a little bit unimpressed with the map on page 7. One would think that in this age of graphic skill and technology that something a little more, shall we say, impressive.
Yeah, the color from
Yeah,
the
even in
picture.
color, it could
Yep.
have been improved. So we hope that does improve.
I still have an issue with they don't show the industrial park there. I can't understand why it's not there. I guess it's not.
They are including that as part of the Main Street West. I don't know how they chose to draw the lines that way, but it's within the red circle that's labeled Main Street West.
Yeah,
This is industrial park.
but they don't, yeah, up there. Couldn't show it clear.
I'm thinking that if someone is looking for places physically places to look at, and they drive around inside the red circle, sooner or later they'll stumble across Commerce Way, because there it is. But again, the map, it's such a small scale. There's no street names, there's no route numbers,
Right.
there's no levels like that.
It's good for somebody who knows Hanson.
Yeah, it's a map for the natives to know, oh yeah, I know where that street is, but it's a mystery if you're not a native. So we hope
It's a mystery how it was even made, because what it is a heat diagram.
Yeah.
What they did was they identified all the commercial and industrial properties in town, and they put it into a GIS layer and assigned heat to the number of,
Within a certain.
the density.
the density. And so you see density in the industrial area, you see density down on Main Street to the Bryantville end, but in between, where presumably people want to develop commercial property in Hanson on Main Street, it's only lightly heated.
Yeah.
So those wouldn't be the places where you would focus if you were looking from outside town.
To that point, in the inappropriateness of this way of doing a diagram too, one of the things that's located in the most dense, sort of highest heat areas is the town's well field,
Yeah, exactly.
which is the last place on Hanson's part of the planet you'd want to put anything. So it's under-informative and could be, at worst, be misleading. But I don't know how it helps, in other words.
Does-
So
doesn't help a lot.
We'll see. But our job is to see if there's anything related to conservation, and I think Frank has made a number of comments here, and including a paragraph, written in on like page 27, you may need a permit for the conservation commission, et cetera, et cetera. So,
We
thank you for that.
mentioned earlier that it only, like, incidentally.
Not in the index, or table.
Well, not as a, yeah, on page 19, how do I get a building permit? 3 lines down.
Yeah,
Kind of incidentally.
yeah, you have to search for it and read everything for 19
Right.
pages before you find that word.
Right. No, I agree with everything Frank.
And you are, you're right, that is there. I just appreciate that. But it's not about whether you appreciate it or not, it's whether it's sufficiently helpful to applicants. If someone who wants to locate a business, never mind, put in a swimming pool, doesn't receive helpful education from this guide, then it's a poor guide.
Yep.
We want it to be a good guide, not a poor one.
A lot of this is just cut and paste boilerplate.
That's why the consultant did it that way, so it's easy.
This was done by a consultant as well as...
That's what I understand.
As far as I know.
That's the truth, yes. We paid
I
some,
thought this was just
we
the-
paid
the-
someone to
the-
do this.
Yeah, and they did a,
We keep paying people to do this. It's like, we have another one coming up on the 19th of November. Would you-
Yes, we, another in a pretty long list of meetings, public attempts to have a public meeting to plan the future of Hanson, again. I find, I'll just say, in this that's sort of great for our, that a lot of the public doesn't fully grasp the development, the decisions made by the people who own the property. Your wishes and desires as a resident who lives in town don't particularly count. Unless you are someone who has money you want to spend on something, and a business that would provide that something wants to come to town, you may want to encourage that. But there ought to be a Chamber of Commerce planning the development. I mean, it's great to have people involved, but my expectations are a little bit low for the total benefit of that.
Unfortunately, mine are. I'm gonna make it we need to have a plan, and I think we should use maybe one of the other older plans, or at least start with the older plans and integrate them. I mean, those took a lot of time and energy by previous consultants, and some of it is outdated, but
I think that if I were orchestrating a meeting like this, and I'm not orchestrating, I'll be lucky if I can make my way to get to attend it, is everyone in the room should come in already familiar with the town's master plan, which was written, it was finished in 2008. That was 14 years ago. But the town's physical layout has not changed. New things have been added in, but there was serious thought given. I was on the committee that wrote that plan, and it was done with a consultant, and over a period of 3 years, a lot of people who were kind of informed about the town. But since then, mostly we've acted like the plan doesn't exist.
yeah,
I think that's a
my
mistake.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Because if we spend hours and hours and hours working on this, is it going to be just set on the table? And if, I don't know.
well, let's try to do our agenda for a moment here. We're going to say,
Sorry.
no apology needed. It's we, I think, have an opportunity to support, not only in the ways we've done it already before tonight, but now the agent submitting comments to town planner on this document.
We need to vote on it?
We do. I think it would be a,
Vote on Frank's comments?
well, yeah, we should skim them and make sure we're well aware. Again, I salute the paragraph that was drafted for, it's written on the page, it's level 27 at the bottom, because it says, a lot about when you may need a permit and who would be involved, and then for more information, 2 ways to do it. And that's good. And I know I'm sort of being redundant here, but I would not be shy in expressing either to the town planner or the consultant himself that I'm disappointed that paragraph wasn't in there already. It's not like other people have never heard of Conservation Commission, so that will help. We don't want to have, we want people to be proactively informed and do everything early on in their process. But Hanson is probably something like 50% or more unbuildable because of wetlands and open water and things like that, so on we go. Frank, do you have anything you want to make sure we don't miss? We talked about the table of contents. On page 8, we'll be adding conservation agent to the key contacts. The list
Yeah,
of key contacts and et cetera is
I
a list.
assume that list is meant to be longer, and it's just a note to
So,
ensure that the conservation is included.
so,
I think the only place where you might have, well, obviously you can have your own comments, but the page 19,
yes.
where I inserted some words, you may find that not enough, or so you may think about how you want to word it.
Yeah, they're suggesting you may need to file a request for a permit from the Conservation Commission and receive their approval. I like the suggestion that they, instead of special permit granted to zoning board of appeals, or enlarge it with saying that's a synonym for zoning board of appeals around here.
I mean, that type of thing just shows it was a cut and paste.
Yeah, but if we consider this to be a draft of a draft, we should probably be a little more kind towards it. But that doesn't mean we won't firmly offer these thoughts. I noticed on page 23, you're offering another bullet point called well permit. Any number of times we've had to officially approve or otherwise people who want to drill a well on their property, because that's an impact sometimes on an area that might be in a buffer zone.
Let's just assume that this isn't a legal document, this is just a guide, but if somebody goes through this and says, okay, I did all this, I did all this, I did all this, and now you're coming back with something else, and is this supposed to be all-inclusive of everything?
I don't see it as intended to be all-inclusive no matter what people. I think that it's intended to get them off the dime more efficiently, and any number of the places that this sends them to might open a can of worms or new thoughts.
It really should send them into the town hall to talk to people.
Make the rounds, especially of the second floor.
Yeah, I mean, like Mr. Russo did on 30 East Washington Street. Of course, he didn't end up buying it, someone else did, but he came in with his ideas for that property, and he hit every office in the town hall, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's what should have happened.
That's why we have offices with doors that are usually open, as often as many hours as we have.
And
Should we suggest that be added, somehow to this, that they do make their rounds of the town hall, or they go to a certain office at the town hall, who would then direct them to other places, like the zoning board of appeals might, or whoever it is might, I wouldn't know, it just seems like this.
where would you go? Where would you start?
I would probably start with the building department, or the zoning board of appeals, but that's, and I would hope they would send me to conservation, depending on, like, I don't know, am I a person that owns land or not? If I own land and there's no wetlands nearby, maybe they don't send me to conservation.
When someone comes into the town hall and asks at the office, they're sent to the town planner,
Yeah.
always. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but at least they,
That is.
at least Miss Green
Please.
directs them somewhere, and that's a start.
Mhm.
But they should definitely hit all the offices upstairs, that's for sure.
To that point, I know for the paragraph you've written here, for more information, contact Hanson Conservation or visit, and then you get the web address. Should we include our phone number? I mean, or do we think that has potential to change? I would hope it'd be stable for at least the life of this little.
Well, I didn't put it in there because it's not on any of the other pages, where
Okay.
it also says contact,
I would suggest
contact the
that-
Board of Health, or the
And maybe they'll. take
Selectman's
that as a-
office. They give them the homepage for the office, but nowhere else are there any phone numbers, so.
What if we
I
suggested?
didn't add. Yeah, obviously, that's a good suggestion.
What if we suggested the content to be one page? It could go like it's back almost as an appendix saying, as of this date, whatever date it's published,
Mhm.
here's the names of the departments, their physical location,
Mhm.
because the water department is not in this building, the
Yes.
police department is not in this building, the street address if you want to go there, their phone number, and the electronic means of addressing them.
Email address or
Yeah.
whatever.
A single page, one side, one page, and have it at the back so that in future editions, if something changes, you can update it, and have a date at the top, so you know it's from this century, or whatever.
Are you getting this down, Lynn?
Because you used to have a phone book, and now we can't have phone books, but it would be like, you would serve that function, you could walk your fingers and jump through the departments that way. Or you would know who to copy people, who'd copy on your inquiries. Well, unless there's anything else, I know I support myself what Frank has written, and there's a couple other things to do. I would entertain a motion, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the submission to the town planner of the collective suggestions for improving the guide to locate the business in Hanson.
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? 3-0-0. Progress. Okay. Property management.
Let's make a small, not change, but amendment to
Okay.
the form there. I did go to the police department about that. Family doesn't have a work folder device.
Yes.
And he said that the best thing to do, to get it on the record, would be to, he logged it in when I was down there
Okay.
and discussed it. He said that's unless we want to file charges, but we can't.
Not sure we have the energy and time bandwidth for that.
Right. Well, so that's why I asked him. So I gave this an error. And he said, well, the thing to do to get it on the record is to have me log it in that you came down and made the report.
Yeah.
Complaint, and then it's on the record. So
Yes.
if there's another occurrence, then it's this history.
It's a repeat.
Meanwhile, I went back there yesterday and checked, and they have not tampered.
Okay.
Looks like they did do that.
Good. If we use this matrix to sort of cover the topic of property management, maybe we just go right down. Cashier, old car seat there.
Yeah, well, I just put those notes in there. You and I saw some stuff like that.
Mhm.
There's a bunch of large things that need to be
Yeah.
taken out of these places.
Things you can't just put in a trash bag and throw in your pickup truck. I mean, it's
Right.
there are things resembling furniture or car interiors that
Right.
need to be dealt with.
So I think over time, I'll try to, they take some work, some of them will be dug out.
You know, if someone ever needed to do community service,
Yeah,
they could provide some muscle power to help you get these things out of the weeds
I know.
and whatever.
So I just put them in there so that you guys know I'm aware of them and
Mm.
chipping away.
Yeah.
Is there, you say there's a lot of trash down at the trailhead on First Ave?
No, but there's some old stuff that when they cleared things out, there's some tarps, there's an old mattress,
It's a legacy from before anyone was really paying attention to that little area. Probably between the time the highway department stopped piling sand in there and a couple of years ago. There's no way to know how long it's been there. It may have been there even before the highway department started putting
been
sand.
there for a while.
It could be a car seat from a 1957 Chevy, who knows?
So there's a few things of that nature. And with that in mind, I think that with this new state law, we probably ought to get some signs that say no dumping.
We do definitely need that.
It should be self-evident, and of course, the real perpetrators will ignore the signs, but I think it would be helpful and not expensive to put some signs that say no dumping.
One of my favorite signs in town is on the gate of the transfer station. It says, "No dumping here or anywhere else in Hanson," and then it indicates a financial penalty and probably a bylaw. I can't remember if it does or doesn't.
Could we get some of those signs?
That message should be on every parking area
Yeah.
and open space trailhead around.
I can see a potential for more of that, probably.
And as the police department has told us more than once, if they are going to be part of an enforcement effort, they need to know exactly what it is they're enforcing. And if there's a sign that points, let's say they catch a perpetrator throwing
Mattresses.
a microwave into the woods, you know, and say, whoa, hold it right there, buddy. See the sign over here? And let's read it together.
Yeah.
And that's why we're having a problem now. And
It's going to get worse as Dave points out.
no question. As disposal methods have become more responsible, like how not to throw chemicals into the rivers and things like that, they've also become more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore more likely to be avoided by bad people.
So, do you think we could get some of those signs?
We can do anything we want. It's a matter of cooperating with the Board of Health or getting them to cooperate with us to make sure we get the wording right, or...
Well, that sign at the transfer station is...
Yeah, I am quoting it without knowing...
Well, no, I understand, but I mean, maybe we should
Can we
just
just duplicate it?
duplicate that sign.
Take a picture of it and duplicate it, the wording? Or do we want to add, please take notice?
Well, let's do a very short little exercise here. The things that we want to make sure people know where we stand on it. One was trash/debris. Another thing is dog etiquette.
Dog what?
Etiquette. That's like on a leash, pick up after, take it home, both the dog and the material.
But you can make it funny like that too.
Well, I'm just trying to not keep it,
I mean, the sign could even be,
I see, and when you see how other places in the country manage trails and open space, the word etiquette comes up, and it could be etiquette/ethics, but then /laws, including bylaws. Motorized vehicles. What I'm going to say is, even though we do have motorized vehicle signs, that probably deserves something. If you look at all the things you want to prohibit people from doing and have a separate sign for each one, you'll have to be able to see past the signs to see the woods. We I think, want to make sure we don't have sign pollution, you know.
how do you avoid that? One single sign?
You do what the Wilderness Trust does it. You have you establish a set of verbiage, so bullet points, and you put it on signs that have other information as well. It's just part of it, a template, if you will. I think it's high time for us to come up with a template.
Well,
Because we have like a dozen trailheads now.
Yeah.
We have kiosks on one of them.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean we can't continue to highly emphasize things like the vehicle. It's probably inevitable that we will and should do that. But what other things are obvious? Oh, I would say hours, dawn to dusk.
Yeah.
What is it?
Dawn to dusk hours.
That has become very common for other management groups to do.
Is that true, though? The reason I'm asking is I go for a walk at 10 o'clock at night all the time, and I know I probably shouldn't, but I do. And I bring my dog, that's probably the only time she's on a leash, so I'm probably disobeying all the laws.
I think it's where judgment gets called for. You're not going to say to someone walking on a sidewalk in Indian history, oh, it's after dusk, you can't do this,
Right.
or it's before time. It provides a tool for managing it if it's called for. If someone is lugging a microwave into the woods at 3 a.m.,
Yep.
they're there at the wrong time to begin with.
Well,
And there's probably other
it
issues.
also offsets I was camping here, and I didn't know I
But
could
can't,
camp.
exactly.
Yes, okay.
You know, so it covers a
So,
lot.
and I do bump into people when I am out there at 10 o'clock at night. Oddly enough, bicyclists, all kinds of stuff. I bump into people more than I'd ever think at 10 o'clock at night. But as a means of enforcement, I agree.
Yeah,
But I would hope it wouldn't be against people like me and those other bicyclists who are bicycling on the
Well,
path.
it's aimed precisely at people like you.
That's the problem. There are way too many.
But whether it's a
People
park,
like you are getting to be enough.
whether it's a park like, I think it would be sensible to do a quick little survey about what's posted at Forge Pond Park in Hanover, what's posted around the Whitman Town Park, what's posted around a few other places like that, too, like well-managed ball fields, like in Matacasa Street or in Halifax. I don't know the whole list of what's there, and other things. But signage is something, rather than be just catch as catch can, I'd like to have an organized approach to it.
Yeah.
And then we'll just do our best. There will always be changes and things to do now.
I agree. Would you, I mean, I guess when we do this, do you like having them all on one sign instead of 4 or 5 separate little plaques?
I think it's gonna vary, there's gonna be other signs too besides this. There'll be a sign saying what the name of the area is, or the name of the trail. There'll be required signs that say, built with the help of such and such state agency and Community Preservation Act, and managed by, whether it's us
So
or...
will this be a template that you're talking about, so every trailhead and it will have a similar look and feel?
I think in principle, what the people talk about is branding it. So people recognize, oh, this is not some random thing. This is those good people doing their good things. There is each trailhead is likely going to have something unique about it, certainly starting with the location itself. But yeah, the goal should be to have no more than a moderate number of separate signs, but also have enough standardization and enough clarity that with a few glances, people know everything they need to know. Like, is it okay to be here? Yes, it's okay to be here. Can I bring my lawnmower? No, you don't. My mini bike. I've seen people. I saw a guy and his daughter unloading sort of little motor scooters. This was several years ago. This Smitty's Pond. They didn't know they couldn't do it because the no vehicle sign had been stolen.
Can I pick flowers? Can I?
There you go. There you go. Whatever the wording is, like, don't disturb vegetation.
I mean, that's,
And there's another thing, no fires.
what was that one?
Very often and very appropriately, fires. No campfires, no cooking fires. In some places, there might be no fires without a permit. We might continue to allow permitted camping in the town forest, and if that always continues to be the case, Boy Scouts and others may very well want to have a perfectly nice little campfire, but they'd have to get a permit from the fire department.
Do we allow that today?
Yes,
Or-
yeah, we've allowed that,
So you could say no fire.
with different levels of explanation, sometimes no. Since 1938, that's been allowed, and it's never been a problem, except for the time one guy started to live there back in the 1960s, but that was corrected.
Without a permit from the fire department?
Right. The thing is though, if you just put that all the time, people go, oh, then fires are okay, so I'll get a permit. Well, I'll pretend I called it in, or, well, some places, I don't think you ever want fires. For example, like Rocky Run. Try getting firefighting equipment in there.
I don't think 90% of the places we wouldn't want fires.
Exactly. So, and the fires that we do now, I'm thinking, this is what's going on in eastern Massachusetts along trails, like the Bay Circuit Trail. When a town or a city, let's say town, allows camping someplace, and if it allows fires, there is an established location for the fire pit. So it glorified what Kewanee has, that's, although it's not, it's quite the same. We can't act like this is still Daniel Boone country, because it's not.
I would suggest putting that verbiage only on the areas that we want people to have fires.
Yeah, I think the default part of our template here is saying no fire. If the places where they could be condoned with permission, it's a short list,
Yep.
and we would deal with that, yes. So, anyway, those are some thoughts. Dave, we took a long time to go sideways on your recommendations about trash and whatnot, but I'm just going to put it on the site plan list. I would suggest that instead of just forgetting we had this discussion, we put in the minutes that there's a consensus to draft standardized language for our signage.
Do we need to do a move on that, or just?
I think not. When we have something final, maybe we vote on that. Moving down to near the bottom here, Dave, the Bay Circuit and Council Event Hospital thing, Bonnie Hill Lane, the Bonnie Hill Trail piece. A lot has happened there, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, that's why I put together these numbers.
And that's what the other pieces of paper are all about.
Yeah.
Maybe everyone has seen them by now.
So I think I covered everything we talked about.
Yeah. Let's start with the trail barrier, which we started last time.
Yeah, I still haven't heard from Dan. He hasn't been paid yet, so as I told you, I'm a little reluctant to press him.
Yeah. Lon and I talked about that yesterday, and it's very, very close to happening, right?
Yeah, it's this week, it's either today, probably tomorrow. They're gonna call and Sam's gonna come pick it up, the treasure collectors.
So the person from Danielle's office wants to come and collect it themselves.
They tell us something about it.
Well, they don't want to worry about the mail.
Right.
It's in the mail, yeah, right.
So anyway, because of that, I haven't pressed him. I did talk to him last week, as I told you, and he hasn't got back to me yet, but I'll pursue it going forward. So anyway, but what I did do is I came up with a sort of a estimate of what it would cost. So I estimated, as you can see, roughly $1,000.
And these things to do with the trail, we're going to look with high optimism at the budget we have, particularly the CPC part of the budget for this project, and see if we can cover that.
Well, I have reasonable confidence that, now these are budget numbers, not bid numbers, but I'm reasonably confident that we can accomplish all of these projects for I think I didn't write the total down. I think it comes to about $20,000. I think in one form or another we can get all this done for that kind of money. Once we spec it out, it's a pretty good one. But I tried to go a little on the range side as opposed to specific.
Yeah.
Except for this and the wooden trail we talked about going up to Bonnie Hill. I actually came up with a material list. That's pretty specific.
In order to make sure we're not missing, we talked just now about the trail barrier stuff. Just take in hand the informational sign list. Walking, we know that at the trailhead itself, the kiosk of the Fifth Avenue parking lot, we want something nice. It would be along the lines of, but I think probably smaller than what we have at the Poor Meadow Brook, but something that says, welcome to the Bonnie Hill Trail and a few other things. So that kiosk itself would be the most expensive single thing.
You can buy commercially manufactured ones of a size similar to the one at Smithy's.
Instead of custom building.
Yeah, without the roof for
Mm.
about 800
Yeah.
bucks. So that's what I came up with.
Yeah, and that's probably fine. I don't think everything requires a roof. The minute you get a roof, now you gotta maintain the roof.
Right.
If it's got wooden shingles, they rot, or, birds and hornets build nests under them, little things like that.
So those are, and I think allowing $250 per sign is reasonable for 18 by 24.
Yeah, and what we're speaking of, just for everyone's information, is at Poor Meadow Brook, that young Boy Scout installed 6 or 7 or 8 sort of angled informational signs that were well done and weatherproof, etc. And we see something like 8 opportunities along that trail to do similar things. When the trail comes up out of the Pierce Avenue area and turns right and you start to go past the meadow where the hospital used to be, explain it. We have a nice, and we think if we have a buffer of like 20 or 30 feet on both sides of the trail, instead of mowed lawn, it's like a wildflower meadow there. But also explain that what the hospital used to be, you can have a picture there. Then further along, before you get too far down in elevation, but you're over the eastern edge, especially with the leaves off the trees, you can look over, what a nice view there is of the cranberry bog. Explain that. And that's also a point where you can say, that area, anything beyond the fence is private property, please respect it. And so you send that message, and they're still fairly early on in their hike. Then a little ways down the hill, you get to that low spot where you have these beautiful tall trees. It's like a cathedral. Explain how that came to be, why it's going to be kept that way, and what some of the tree species are. And Dave said you could even label some of them so that people will know you have, whether it's on the tree, I think, or maybe a rugged little sign at the foot of the tree, so it doesn't like harm the bark. People don't know what a black locust is, or they don't know a black cherry from a white pine, or it could be nice. Then further beyond that, you get out on the paved road again, you see the foundations of the old piggery building. You're like, what the heck is this? It looks ugly, it looks like a bomb went off, but if we do the little site upgrading things with filling that in a little bit, that could be a place to explain the hospital had an agricultural side to it. 100 years ago, that's what they did. They cracked their own food here. And this is where the bacon and ham came from. And a little ways beyond that, we have an eventually to be restored meadow. You explain meadows. There aren't any of them left anymore except for these few. Then further along where we had the culverts put in, you've got a tailor-made wetland laboratory. It's a nice little wetland. Explain the water running off the non-absorbent Bonnie Hill, the Glacial Hill, and wetland plants, they're different from the others, and sensitive area, all the interests of the Wetland Protection Act, wildlife, etc. Then next to last, you come out to the other meadows, and you could have a little more information about, again, the agriculture, but you're facing now sort of downslope towards Wampatuck Pond. You can talk about how it's part of the North River watershed, related to the landscape beyond. And then Bonnie Hill Trail Extension, we have that, it sort of looks like a Neolithic ruin, that circle which was the old charcoal burning site. That has interest all by itself, because the whole charcoal industry has been forgotten. Frank knows what we're talking about. Yeah. And have you physically seen that thing? That someday when you're feeling really ambitious, have a nice walk, and you'll think it's cool too. And then there may need to be, and that's maybe a ninth one, there would need to be, when we do break through to the cul-de-sac and the Bonnie Hill Lane, have a sign there saying, what is this? Welcome. But also in giant neon letters, no parking.
I was gonna do a brain fart and say, have you passed us through the reuse committee, or the
Uh,
park committee, but you're on that.
Yeah, I'm on that, and we will be vigorously meeting in the near future. Three-quarters of this list is our property, not that, but the first 3 items are on that. And it's very much of a piece with how we want people to enjoy that. We mean, I was speaking for the newly named High Street Park Committee, because it has a new name now. It's no longer the Final Plymouth County Hospital Reuse Committee. It's the High Street Park Committee. But yes, absolutely, good point. This is how liaisons are supposed to work. Bring ideas back and forth between the groups.
Yep.
And before you actually put something up on paper or on a tree or whatever, you share the idea.
Are you planning on doing a sheet of paper for each of these and showing it to
100%.
before having it generated on it?
Just like a guide to businesses, we'll do a draft.
Yep.
And put it out there. And our goal will be have it be sensible enough and nice enough, and well designed enough that people would say, why wouldn't we do that?
Mhm.
Of course. Moving on, the Bonnie Hill Trail materials for the wetland area.
That one I actually did a materials takeoff.
Yeah. The corrugated culvert pipe.
It comes in 20-foot lengths.
Yeah. You and I were saying that we feel strongly that a 6-foot section here and then another 6 foot, you could take a 20-footer and make it into 3 sections that are each 6 2/3 feet long. And so that's fine.
And are they buried? When are they?
No, this is an opportunity to follow models that exist on other parts of the Bay Circuit Trail, where you take these corrugated black plastic pipes that they're built to, if properly installed, take the weight of a truck. You know, they were actually pretty rugged things, and pretty UV resistant if it's exposed. Simply, if you're in a wet area, put it on its side in the wet area, short section, and then 8 feet away, put another one, and then you bolt, like, what is it,
Ledger
2 by 8 along the length of it. So now you have a wooden flat surface to work with, and then on those you lay these stringers, 2 by 8 by 12 feet long, and then you put the treads across that.
That's
And
what this is a bridge type.
yeah,
Just
it
like that.
bridges wet areas that are boggy, that are wet. There's actual stream, and there's a stream in the middle of this, about 5 feet wide, and it gets you through them, and it has the lightest touch to the impact to the landscape. It's pretty
Because
good.
it's just the bottom of
It's just the bottom of this plastic culvert. In fact, it's like a hollow log. Things are going to live in there. You know, a rabbit's trying to get away from a hawk, boom, go right in there. For a rabbit says to Mr. Owl, you can't get me. Fox could get him, but the owl couldn't. And again, I can sort of search archives that I have where I kind of, and put into all of our hands and the hands of anyone else that needs it, images of these things that already exist elsewhere. But Dave, you've priced out the hardware, the fasteners, as well as the structural pieces.
Yeah, I think it's covered.
And again, within the budget of the project, the trail budget was, we estimated $130,000. 30,000 of that is CPC money. This is only probably 6 and change from that. And when it comes to actually installing it, we still have extremely high optimism that a team of people from the Bay Circuit Alliance / the AMC can help even lead the installations, because they've done it before in these other places. But it's up to us to spend the money on the materials, and we have the grant money to do it. And lastly, when you get to Bonnie Hill Lane itself, you're out of the wetland, but now you got to get up to the paved cul-de-sac.
Yeah,
Kind of steep,
this is the toughest one to actually put in the real numbers.
but we gave it a whirl to start.
Yeah.
You and I discussed, people who do these things really on the cheap, they use wooden railroad ties, things like that. Well, those always get slippery and mossy, and they rot and stuff like that. we're thinking, gosh, what if we did granite steps set into the ground? The way they use stone steps in other, like the Blue Hills and others. Well, if you had 3-foot long things, and you needed up to 20 of them made, and they cost each up to $65, and then you had to have them installed, probably have to do it professionally. A machine will probably have to come to the end of the cul-de-sac and reach over and prepare and then place. So this rough first pass has maybe up to $9,000.
Yeah, I mean, I feel pretty confident we could do it for under 10,000, but I don't know how much under 10,000.
Yeah. And I will say this, there's a safety valve. Let's say we spend like pretty much all the $100,000 for the state grant, and we spend all of the CPC money. We're not done. Go to CPC again in the spring and ask for more money. Ask for another $5,000 or $10,000.
I think if we're doing it cost effectively, you know, we're not wasting the money and doing
Right.
silly things, we're doing what needs to be done.
Right. So,
When I added up before, I think it comes to about 20,000 roughly, if I remember right. Try to get all of it done.
yeah. I think I would entertain a motion, and please chime in if you think we should do it some different way, to authorize Mr. Mansfield and/or other partners in this trail construction project to commence arrangements for purchasing these materials and these services, because this is us building our trail.
As far as the installation allowance and the various stuff that we can't do ourselves, do we need to go out to bid?
Now, if it's under
If it's
10,000.
under $10,000, we as a commission, and we would have to take a step to do it specifically, but we can make arrangements for it and yet not make the commitment signed on the dotted line until we vote here. If it's under $10,000, we're required to use sound business judgment, and that usually means checking with 3 places and going with the one that's either lowest or best, depending.
We don't have to go through all the bid process.
Right, okay. But we still need to do,
It's good business practice.
Due diligence.
Yeah.
yeah,
If there is, let's say, a special sort of service that you know there's only one person within 20 miles that does it, and they've already done it very good, nicely for you before, and it was reasonable, good business practice, say, like, don't waste 3 months looking for another person, just have them do it.
and do we tend to try to stay within Hanson businesses? Is that a goal, or is that just a local business?
Well, we're not obliged to.
It's business practice that, again, I think it passes the sense test. We've heard many times in this building and nearby that small local businesses deserve to be supported, and if they provide proper services that happen to be affordable and they're available, great.
Well, that's why we approached Sheehan, McKinnon, and Dan Dell.
Yeah. We did
Sheehan and
see-
McKinnon deferred, but McKinnon did the parking lot down at Elm Street.
Yes, they've done work. And the person who sort of outlined the overall cost for this whole trail project was Sheehan.
Right.
Because he and I walked it almost 3 years ago, and he gave a rough estimate,
It's great.
and from that, we developed our bids that we went through that painful process.
Yeah.
And interestingly, the people who were not local were either wildly unreasonable in their quote, or deemed not the contractor choice for other reasons, for just unwarranted expansion of the project, maybe apparently a misunderstanding of some things. So we just need to use good common sense and good business practice. Yeah. But
We
do we?
could've been last time. We could've.
No, I'm saying they would be public division.
Should we have a motion like I just said, but with part of being before any actual contracting occurs, that would be brought.
But there is one project I didn't include, and that's clearing that first meadow.
Okay, yes. There could be some clearing, to the extent that our budget here allows it, and we think from early feedback from the contractor who's already worked on the trail. It could be affordable.
That'll, I mean, there's 3 meadows,
Mhm.
and it'll depend entirely on how much we want to take out of it, what we want to do, so it's pretty tough to put a number on it without.
Yeah.
We've got
Yeah, I don't think that tonight we can sit here and explain to the commission and to our staff exactly how that will all work out, but our goal is to have the trail corridor not only be completed, but be as environmentally enhanced as possible. That includes someday, let's say be early or later on, meadow restoration. We know that one contractor who does some tree work, stuff like that, namely Keeney Tree, looked at the meadow and said, like, I'm a small company, there's so many vines and briars and things besides the trees, we would not want to bid on that. People who do have larger scale equipment would come in and much more efficiently clear an area. And included a company that did the trail work already, much more likely to be the feasible provider.
I mean, I did have somebody throw out just a rough number of $5,000 to clean one of those meadows, so. But that's not a bid, that was just like, yeah, about $5,000 we can do it, so.
It may be,
That's all we have to go on.
it may be that very soon, Roosevelt Glacier, perhaps as soon as the next meeting, we might have something specific about that. But I do think there's no reason to not proceed with some purchasing, because we can only get reimbursed for these costs if we've incurred them. And so if we take and do some acquisition, then we can put together, we can put it on our things to be reimbursed for.
But if we buy anything, where are we going to store it?
Not a bad question. In the boarding house, or in the extension service building,
What do you?
or in the basement of the food pantry. I wouldn't want to lug all this stuff up and downstairs, this type of, or at somebody's house until the day we do the work, or the highway department, or what?
This is the bridge thing you're talking
Yeah.
about?
Well, any of it, but that,
That is the bulkiest stuff by far.
that's gonna be quite
Is
a
there a time frame, like you're buying it at one time and building it at another?
Well, you're not gonna buy it and then put it installed 5 minutes later. There's gonna be a lag, a time lag.
Right, but I mean, could be you bought it and installed it within the next week, the next weekend or whatever.
it'll take more than a weekend.
The thing is, every project has all these angles to it, and the storage thing is very much like,
I mean, the materials for the block, for the vehicle blockage, that's not much stuff.
yeah, and wherever you put it, you know, it's not gonna walk away. Lumber could walk away if it wasn't a secure good source. And also, this bulky stuff, moving it more than once or 1.5 times is pretty dreary.
The two biggest material costs are gonna be the granite and the lumber. If they both.
The granite's not gonna walk away. You kind of.
No, but you don't wanna leave a pallet of granite at the end of the body.
Oh, the granite for the steps.
Yeah.
Yeah. How much do those weigh?
I don't remember, but they're really heavy.
It's a good estimate.
Too heavy.
By the way, picture the front steps of the town hall up here, the one facing the
I'm
curb.
not lifting one, I know that.
Yeah. I don't have an answer right now of the best place to put that stuff.
Well, here's a thought, as far as the granite goes. If we find a contractor that's willing to do the job, they might be willing to store the stuff.
Hold it on their site until they bring it to the site to
Right.
install it
Right.
on that day.
So that's a possibility for the granite.
Yeah.
The lumber is a little bigger issue, because that's gonna be a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
The highway department doesn't have storage?
I don't think we want to burden them with this. They've got certain hours that their facility's open, and then after 3 o'clock, those hours are over. And they're also not right next to the storage place. There may be some private citizens near this location that will be willing to cooperate. I have two brothers who live on High Street, a short distance from this place, who happen to both be licensed contractors.
Web already has a yard full of stuff.
Could we,
Well, the thing is, there is room, and there is room, I think, in one particular place it's roomy, it's out of sight, but still handy, and I can ask.
Sure, right.
Yeah. So when you look at it, this isn't like material to build a house. You make a pile, if it's compact, it's not that big of a pile. However, to us, it's a very valuable pile.
Right.
So,
Yeah, okay, so,
are we gonna have the lumber delivered there, or are we moving it ourselves?
well, we're gonna store it there, we have it delivered there.
We'll move it from there.
yes,
Yeah.
and part of the budget of the project is volunteer help. And that can be people who are town employees, it can be town department, it can be other people who sign something, a waiver, but for capabilities, maybe they've got a truck and they just really like helping with these things. There are such people, we know them.
Dave and I.
Yeah, look at you guys,
Yeah.
and look at TJ, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, that, I think, will fall into place. Is there any reason to not have a motion, second, and a vote to proceed with acquiring these things, but as provided we have a, that we do officially vote on specific contracting services?
I see no reason not to proceed.
Well, the signage thing, we can't move on until we get the verbiage on that.
It may be that a consensus is enough for now. We need to get, we need to be very specific about the signs. I think that the thing that is perhaps most time and procedurally sensitive is the building materials for the wetland crossing area.
Yeah.
Maybe we can just say, number one, thank you for this information. Number two, we'll work with this and make sure that for each particular step, we'll do the right thing. If there's more specific things supposed to be done, we'll do them. We can, we'll be convening again later this month.
Right.
And
So,
so be
I
it.
just wanted to make sure I got the numbers out to you so we could have a sense of what.
Very much appreciated. As far as, I have one thing in open space acquisition to say. It's looking more likely than not that sometime in early November, an executive from Hubble, the company that used to own light control and this and that, will be coming to town, and I will be walking with him on some of the property that they own here in town to see if we can.
Not the buildings, but.
No, not the buildings, but the ones that are joined our concentration at Crooked Place, to see if they would entertain a future offer of $117,500, which is what it was appraised for.
There's already a number from them or from us?
No, from us.
Okay.
We had an independent professional appraiser look at it last year. That's still in my book, recent. And he produced a voluminous report, and it met the standards of all the professional appraisal laws and regulations and things. And that's the figure he came up with. We need to know if the owner, which is Hubble, agrees and would sell it to us for that. And then between now and next spring, we can pursue funding mechanisms, whether it's CPC, grants, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, get to the point of almost a P&S.
So there's nothing for us to do today?
No,
But
this is just
an
totally for
information.
awareness. But it would fill a gap in the basic trail. Right now, there is a gap.
Oh, have you made any contact with Bay Circuit Appalachian Mountain Club on for down
playing phone tag with, Mickey, whatever his last name is, Mickey Tommins.
there? It's in process.
Yes, very much.
What's that on?
They
We're
would be,
looking for them to help us build it.
they assemble several times a year teams of people from their organizations
Okay.
that enable to do trail construction. And that we would need them for that. Moving along, we have invoices signed for the Hanson Express and some other things. Close at hand? Yes,
We
they
haven't had
are.
any,
Conference you do too.
we haven't had any
You guys want
return
one?
response from Hanson Express on articles there. I mean, I reached out to them twice, and you
I
got them.
think their head is full right now of headlines,
Yeah,
like town meetings and other things like that. Maybe they haven't had time to think about our request.
I think, I reached out to them on something different. I suggested as a private citizen that it would be nice if there was a calendar of what's going on in the neighboring towns, you know, in Hanson. And they're like, we don't have space for it. Okay.
gee, they don't have much, they don't have any pages, maybe they could add a page. Have a little space.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
At the rate they're going, it's gonna fit in an 8x10 envelope.
Here's one thing, it's not an invoice, but it's,
Oh, we're gonna wish them well?
unless we don't want to.
Oh, you don't have to. You can draw a picture if you want.
Write him a poem, compose a sonnet.
Is there anything new on the tree planting?
Yes. Lon will explain to us what we achieved the other day.
Let me get my piece of paper.
We sat there and we achieved some things.
So we're looking at the numbers for the wetlands restoration at Smitty's Bog. We're kind of putting our numbers together for the reimbursement. New England wetland plants. We're able to get, by playing with the numbers, instead of 50, we could get 61 of them.
61 of the buttonbush shrubs.
Yep,
No, how about the cedars?
And
cedars. So I'm waiting for them to get back to me on that. I confirmed it, but they're waiting to get back to them. They're waiting, no, this is the one you're going to, right? New England wetland.
I'm physically
Okay.
going to pick up the wetland
Okay.
plants from,
So, I was
That's
in
what
contact
we
with
did.
them to see what we needed to do, if we needed to invoice beforehand. I just didn't want someone to take a ride up there and didn't know what we needed, but they said
And they-
they invoice us afterwards.
okay, yeah. And they simply want to know that they're ahead of time
Yep.
when we're coming.
Where are they from?
Out near Amherst. I've got a couple of destinations out in the middle of the state. I can combine it with a trip for that, so it's not
So you
just
have
a
to-
trip.
Yep. American White Cedar, I'm still waiting to hear back, about their invoicing, but
We settled on numbers.
we settled on the numbers. I just called to confirm that the numbers were okay. And they deliver them by UPS in boxes of
Boxes 25.
25 each.
It's bare root, but packed in material that holds moisture like paper, and then plastic around that, 25 in a box. And if we got 100 of them, is that what we're saying?
Yeah, if we get 100 at $15 each, we get a 20% discount, which is $300.
So then it's back down to 1,200 for the
Yeah,
100 trees.
and then the shipping is at $942. The total is $2,142.
And that's clearly the lion's share of the $3,000 that USDA will do for us.
Yep.
I think now we're ready to put together, and clearly call it a draft invoice, communicate that, scan that, and send it to Helen, and say, we desire and intend to submit this to you once these numbers are all finalized, and once you confirm to us this format will be appropriate for our reimbursement for this project. I think we're very confident in these numbers,
Okay.
but until we actually have invoicing, we can't send an invoice we
Right.
don't have. And I
Okay.
don't want to incur these costs unless she says that's going to be fine. I want her to say that again.
Okay, so we'll just tell her we're following up.
Yeah. I think that could be maybe one of our last useful acts this week on that topic.
Do that tomorrow. So
We know
yeah,
what we want and we know what it'll cost.
the amount that we came up is, so far is $2,990.42. So we're under budget.
Yeah. So again, I don't know how she could say no to it, but we need to hear her say yes. All right. Okay. One other thing that was very good is Monday of
That's
last
right.
week, not 2 days ago, but a week, the annual monitoring of the conservation restriction law, Poor Meadow Brook, that 115 acres, that happened. A new monitoring person from the Wildlife Trust came, we introduced her to the staff upstairs, and then I guided her around. And we went to the West Washington Street access, we went to the Holmes Street access behind Gary's Annex property, and we went to the access along the railroad tracks. And we looked at the Peterson property along Poor Meadow Brook, which we've owned for quite a long time, and the acreage, the southernmost part of our Poor Meadow Brook extension. And everything looks fine. It's a requirement that they staff annually. Someday it'll be easier because there'll be a few more trails than there are right now. And the good news is they did what they were supposed to do, and we're doing everything by the book on that big farm piece of property. Oh, and there's something like 4 beaver dams along Poor Meadow Brook and tributaries.
Long as the beavers.
They are busy. They're working like fill in the blank.
You're busy as,
Can they plant trees?
They are more into cutting them down,
Wow.
and they have done so. And they didn't get a permit, but you know what? They're not citizens. They're a different category of regular. They actually have special protection.
Yes, they do.
They're working within 50 feet of wetlands.
Yeah. I don't think there's any more business to come before this meeting. Correct me if I'm wrong. No hearing, no corrections. Motion to adjourn. And the second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?